Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's so nice to see a room full of people from the HR fraternity. Uh, we, we are today living in possibly unprecedented times in my mind. The balance of power has never been more tilted in favor of the employee as it is today. I run an executive search firm, and it just reminds me of a search I was just doing very recently. So let me just talk about it and set the context. So we had this candidate. So this was a search for a head of product for a B2B SaaS company. The candidate on 31st December 2021 was at a compensation of 39 lakhs. Yeah, 29 lakhs fixed, 10 lakhs variable. On 1st January 2022, he is offered 67 lakhs. 39 lakhs fixed and the balance is variable. On 19th August 2022, my client offers him 91 lakhs. 68 lakhs fixed and the balance variable. And guess what? He rejects the offer because he has an offer of 1.1 crores. So what do companies do in these times of great resignation? We are talking of, completely times which the HR has not seen before. At least I haven't seen this kind of frenzy in my 18 years, 20 years as an executive search professional. How should one structure their performance management systems, their compensations, fixed variable ratios? How do one create a winning reward strategy? How does one create that fine balance between achieving individual performance and at the same time promoting, collaboration and team culture? So to talk about this and much more, we have a very, very exciting panel of experts today with us, and who come from very, very different backgrounds and industries. So let's give a round of applause for Kavita, Renu and Sudhir. And I'm sure, like Isha mentioned, we want to make this session as participative, as productive, and I promise that I will leave enough time for all of you to ask your questions so that we can all take away, things that we can implement in our daily lives. So let me start. As per a recent survey, most people are not happy post a performance appraisal. I mean, I think we all agree with that, right? So, in fact, some of the companies are now giving up the bell. So, my first question, Renu, Kavita, to you. What do you think are effective performance management systems that companies should employ in these dynamic times? And also, if you can throw some light on what is it that you follow in your organization.
Thank you, Ankit. It's great to be here with all of you. It's not just about being panelists, it's also about going back and thinking, are we doing things right? So, as far as bell curve is concerned, it's a very touchy and a favorite topic. I personally believe bell curve is dead. It's dead, rotten, buried. Because that's one sin that HR heads should never do in the company. That's because you grade your talent in buckets without really differentiating between performance and potential. Performance is past, you've gone by. Potential is what the person brings on board. It's very important for us to map. Unfortunately, bell curve does not have that provision. So that's my bit on bell curve. In all the organizations since 2012, if I'm not wrong, I have at least replaced bell curve wherever I worked. So we follow line grade. It's nothing but the metrics of performance and potential. Again, as far as employees being happy after appraisal, there is no science. Believe me, there is nothing you can do on this earth where you can please all after a performance appraisal. How much you pay a person, and you call up and say, congratulations, you got a promotion, you got some 20, 25 or maybe 50% jump. The moment he sees somebody else's numbers, he'll come back and say, maybe साड़ी उससे सफेद कैसे, that's not continuous. So there's no way you can do it. But I personally believe it has to be a continuous, ongoing process. We must replace annual appraisals with continuous feedbacks and make it more transparent, make it more structured, make it more quantitative and qualitative as well, and data-driven, so that it is more holistic, more transparent, and unconscious biases are removed. So,
Sure. I can already feel this is going to be a great session with all of us so relating to everything that has been discussed and said, right? Renu,
Yeah.
if I can bring you.
So yeah, good morning to you all, and I'm quite happy to be here. So the question that, after appraisal one feels disappointed, I think it's a fact. I would say that 80% people, there's no data behind this, but I have gone through that experience myself, that after the performance appraisal is over, you come out with either disappointment, or the manager is stamping you that you lack strategic thinking, you are good but you don't stretch, and these kind of feedback are given, then you come out as if you have been you're disappointed. So why should we have performance appraisal system in the organization? First and foremost, I think the aim is to make the organization become performance oriented or achieve more performance year on year, month on month. I think that is the big aim, and then believing that it is people who will make the organization reach those goals. How do we, give them some stretched performance target, and then make the organization grow with the people growing and the organization growing in tandem. That is a broad aim. But on the ground, what happens is that it becomes at times like Preeti said, that we should also believe that we are here just at the stroke of luck. But how many managers believe in that? So the session becomes as if the manager is saying that I know all and you don't know nothing. So if you come out of an appraisal interview or assessment with a surprise shock, then definitely it's not happening in the right way. Performance appraisal system, I would believe it's very important. You just cannot replace it. You can maybe improve it further and further, making it more regular, making it more constructive, making it more more prospective than retrospective. क्या हुआ पिछले साल? That is not important. What we can do with those learning is more important. And we all know that all those performance rating have gone out of the window after this great resignation, when you're just asking people, okay, you want to retain, but that's a phase. In the broader picture, performance appraisal is going to stay. It needs to definitely be overhauled. It has to be customized. It should aim at improvement of the individual to help the organization. And it cannot be something, that where you start saying that you're not good kind of thing, which happens at times. So what we do in Schenker is that obviously we don't follow bell curve, definitely yes. We do go for a certain kind of, calibration after the appraisal has been done. L1 has been done, the L2 does calibration, saying that, as compared to this particular BU, is this BU correct in giving these kind of, ratings and so on. So it is like having a triangulation done and also adding to fairness principle, and not just to say that, why it is not bell curve, you can only have 10% people in the on a higher rating or best rating or last of the 5-point scale or 10-point scale. I would say that still managers have this feeling that they will not give anyone, if we have a 5-point scale, I have found in my organization, nobody would give a 5. And they would say, no, these guys are not Superman. But I keep on telling that this is a 5-point scale made for these people only. When you can easily say that they are 1 or 2, you can also be able to say who is a 5. And that is a struggle that I generally face while talking to people around this. So we don't have bell covered. What we have done is that after every appraisal cycle, we run a feedback to all the employees, asking them how was the discussion, was it constructive, and first of all, did the discussion happen with you or not? This is the way I think we are able to get the voice of people who have undergone some kind of hurt or disappointment to make it better. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
So continuous feedback, L1, L2 deliberations. Sudhir, do you think the performance management system employed by an organization, is also a derivative of the size of the organization? Smaller companies should adopt a different mechanism. Larger corporations need to adopt different mechanisms. And you work with different kinds of clients throughout your career. So what's your perspective on that?
Sure. Thanks, Ankit. And let me deviate for a minute and then come back to this. Firstly, it's great to meet you all in person. And if I have to define luck in this dimension, what Priti said, this is, part of that luck, when we're meeting in person, leaving that dreadful 2 years behind. And with that hope, I've also got my business card printed right in my pocket. So that's a great opportunity, which I thank Sapphire Connect to give us. And coming back to the point, of PMS and relating to size, with a declaration that I'm not a HR guy, I'm also from business side. In 90s, parents would used to ask kids, what do you want to become? And there will be only two answers. You all know what would that be, a doctor or an engineer. Today, when you ask somebody, you want to catch up a python, that's the kind of transformation which has happened. People don't send objects, they dunzo it these days. So that's the kind of transformation which we are seeing. So a PMS does not depend on size, neither it depends on the color of the collar. I think that's how we have defined it in traditional ways. So it has to evolve, looking at the business dynamics, how the organization are changing in terms of the business they do. Today, if you Google it, you would find the top 10 organizations globally are doing intermediation. They do not have any product or service, but it's an intermediation. They are bringing a supplier and a buyer. So in those environment, in those dynamics, how a PMS would fit in and give better results is one important aspect. The second important thing to look at is what is the demographic continuum which we are having. We had Gen Z, and I still feel very young at heart, but I know that I'm cross 40s. And we also have Gen millennials and then Gen Zs coming together. So you need to have a very inclusive way of looking at PMS rather than looking at only size. I think these are two very important components. Of course, one can really look at various ways of designing it, whether it is a budget focus or KPI focus or BSC or any other method which you would want to use. You can always use improvisation, but there should be nuggets to have the employee engaged and participate in that PMS. After working for 2 decades, I have seen in the early years the employees are not engaged and participative in the PMS. And that's where the whole lot of attrition happens in the early 1 or 2 years. I think that could be one differentiator when you're looking at PMS. For mature organizations, they are also interlinking the PMS with various other facets. For example, they unlock the PMS portal only when you have done XYZ things, which could be as basic as annual health checkup, which drives a culture around of being healthy or being well. So these kind of things which you want to drive through a PMS mechanism can also be embedded. I think that's my bet on the side.
Sure. Renu, should I bring you in on this? Do you think it's about maturity, evolution, where the organization is on the evolution curve, or size, which determines what performance management system you deploy?
Yeah, it depends upon the size of the organization, it depends upon the maturity curve. For a starter, the appraisal system cannot be the same as a very mature organization like say us, which is 150-year-old organization. And I believe that it has to be customized. As I said, even within the same industry, 2 organizations may not have the same kind of appraisal system. So for a startup, what is the objective? At the end of the day, appraisal is linked to the MBO concept, management by objective. We may call it OKR these days, we may call it KPIs, we may call it KRAs. At the end of the day, it is about what are the management goals, what is the management strategy, and how you bring it down and down and down, make it more participative, make it more democratic. But so for a startup, what is the first goal or the prime goal in the very first year may not be the same for a company like us, which has goals around ESG in a bigger way than just going on economic goals. So yes, appraisal system, the maturity of the appraisal will differ, and also the managers, who in very big organizations may have far more maturity in terms of maybe understanding emotional quotient than maybe a startup. I'm not saying the startup guys will not be having it, but it depends what is in demand, what is the focus from them. Yeah, so it would be definitely different.
Got it. So Kavita, coming to so one of the things I do for a living is help people structure compensations, right? So, and I've not come across anybody who doesn't like a higher fixed or 100% fixed, right? Yet I've seen companies try and structure their variables, make them as complicated as one can make them to be. And then to an extent that sometimes employees give up of understanding of how variable actually works. Right? So my question is that how does one create an effective variable policy?
See, if we don't make it complicated, then anybody will start doing the structuring. So HR guys really make it complicated. No, serious note, why do we put variable? What's the difference between variable and fixed? I think fixed is what comes home every month with basic level of performance, and it's almost given that every 1st or 7th or whatever is the payout month, you will get that money. Variable is something which usually companies, and I'm sure there are thoughts and schools around it, companies usually structure it with the intent to pay more with higher level of performance. See, variable structuring is very important for the right compensation structuring of a person to be motivated. As long as it is fair, it is transparent, it is commiserating to the efforts made, it is sustainable, which essentially means I know on this day, by doing 1, 2, 3, 4 things, I will achieve an X percentage. If that is clear, believe me, there is no bigger driver than variable. In our company, it's a very interesting model. We have a sales incentive. Now, incentive is nothing but variable here. It's 100%, which essentially means you get a 10 lakh salary, you get 10 lakh variable. Now, imagine the motivation of that person, and every quarter it gets paid. So, you know very clearly, I do X, Y, Z, and I will achieve this number. My team member does it, I will achieve this number. My boss also gets a percentage of it. It has a waterfall cascading effect. So what I'm trying to say here is, if it is transparent, it is periodically defined, it is clear, it works as a motivator, and the percentage is enough for you to work hard. If it is less than 5% of your base pay, nobody is going to be bothered. And if it is so many riders around it, ye karoge, wo karoge, aisa hoga, which essentially means company achieves its goal, department achieves its goal, X does it, Y does it, only then will you get it, then the motivation is gone. So you have to keep it simple, you have to keep it straight, you have to keep it tangible, and the person is going to really work towards it. So for us, the biggest attraction point is the variable that we have.
So simple, fair, transparent, sustainable. Sudhir, your thoughts?
Sure, Ankit, if I may draw a sort of live situation where I was leading one business, which is not very old for one of the organizations where I work. When I took over, I saw that the number of business matrices were around 12. I said, okay, before we move ahead, let's try to find out how many they remember, let alone perform. Okay. So, it didn't move beyond 3. It didn't move beyond 3. So, from a practical perspective, and like I said, I'm for business, it's always good to kind of look at that, how many variables you want to integrate in the variable structure. So that's the, how many part of it, and the other side is how much. Kavita did mention, what should be the right mix of fixed versus variable? Is it 5, 10, 15, 25, 30? Because if you see, a variable brings a good balance between performance and cost optimization. I think these are two broad objectives. By variability you get these two, in a very fine balance. One needs to be very careful to look at if we are too liberal on the performance side, we might end up, having a high cost outflow, and if we are too liberal on the cost side, then we'll not have employees participating in that, sort of variable, and the performance may not be achieved. So that's the fine balance. So coming back to the example which I gave, when we changed the metrics, we reduced it to 6 in the first year, and in the second year it was up to 4. And of course, there are linkages, to kind of, drive and bring it a holistic sense. But I think that's very important. And a very important thing Kavita also presented is the communication. At times, what happens is it becomes a April to March discussion, and it doesn't happen throughout the year. And if we have mechanism to communicate it and keep people on course, you would see a much better adoption versus doing it at the time of appraisal, or doing it less periodically. I think these are very important aspect of variability, and then we could also package it well. When I say 15%, it need not be always a financial motive, financial motivation. And then people look forward for praises, recognition, and a lot of other ways which you could add with the variability and still get the necessary mileage. So I think that's the way you could structure a variable. Thank you.
So Renu, I'm going to ask something. I'm going to take a step back and actually ask, in your experience, and you work with different organizations, does variable really lead to a better or an improved performance?
I'll just talk about the compensation topic itself. I think we have not been unraveled the myth or the mystique behind compensation. There was a study I was reading about in HB done by Harvard Business School on students, where it was said that if you are paid to pick up what is going to be your salary. If you are paid 100,000, your peers will get 200,000. If you are paid 50,000, your peers will get 25,000. And they all picked up, or most of them picked up to be paid 50,000. While they should have picked up 100,000, because 100 is more than 50,000. But we generally, when we are looking at our compensation, we are also looking at what are the other team members getting. So compensation is generally, I would believe, a very challenging topic for any organization. Now coming back to variable, my own experience is that definitely variable helps. Why we put a very big thing on variable in Schenker, 30%, 20% of our overall income, or target income, 30% is variable at times. It helps us in not loading the personal cost, because what happens that at the end of the day, what is EBIT? The profit is revenue minus personal cost minus other costs, and then we come to EBIT. And if we go for a very high fixed cost in terms of personal cost, then obviously we are not helping the organization. We are starting with a high cost structure. So yes, we put a lot on variable. It, as Sudhir rightly said, that what is the metric that matter. It can't be 12 metrics, you are adding volume, you are adding GP, you are adding, say, DSO, you are adding so many factors, and then the person who is the individual sitting in any BU would be thinking that, पता नहीं क्या होगा, मेरा incentive कुछ भी हो सकता है. So we moved from that 12, we also had not many metrics to an easy metric, and we are also making it visible. So every quarter we make it visible to them that this BU or this business unit can get this kind of variable incentive this year. We have also de-linked it with performance appraisal rating, because I believe the performance appraisal rating is one data point. Just like your MBTI score or MBTI type or your DISC profile, they are like one type of assessment. It just can't be so over impacting that it also impacts your bonus. Yeah, unless you are a very low performance rater, then it impacts. And then what we have found, not only in sales but in other areas also, variable has, as long as your variable is something where you believe you can impact the variable A, and it is visible to you month on month or quarter on quarter, then only you will start working on those variables and make the organization also grow on those goals, and you also, earn good bonus.
Sure. Anybody else? I mean, does variable really drive performance in your mind? Does it end up undermining the fix?
It's more like profit and the interest partner, the real value versus the interest that you get. Variable is always over and above. And if like rightly Renu said, if you show the money, the performance definitely comes. It's all about being transparent and telling that, here's the goal, here's the milestone, achieve it, take the money. We've seen drastic change. When I joined ABP, I'll give you an example, 3 years back, we used to pay variable, but we never used to say how much we pay. It was always a surprise. So, basis the bonus or the profit that the company would make, a percentage was allocated and it was paid. And when I joined, I realized that we don't write it anywhere, because then it becomes a commitment. And I think that was the first structural difference that we did. We actually announced the next year bonus in the letter. And that is how the journey started. Now imagine you're dealing with 70% journalists who does not understand their own compensation, and you're talking about variable. So I think it was a nightmare. They all came back and said, everything is fine, letter बहुत complicated. So it took me 2 years to explain them, letter complicated नहीं है, ये letter transparent है. So structurally you have to, I think it's also about educating and telling people that you are getting measured on 1, 2, 3 things, and this is the monies you will get. And when they started seeing the monies come, more, less, basis the performance, basis the feedback, basis the contribution, I think that is where the belief started happening. And the more transparent you make it, the more upfront you are about announcing what you're giving, I think it always drives performance.
Sure. So, we have LTIPs, we have ESOPs, RSUs, EPOPs. In what situations do you think these long-term incentive plans start becoming an effective retention tool in today's age?
So I personally believe it lot depends on the stage of life you are in.
The organizations.
No, employees stage of life. So if you're in your 20s, you won't care about LTIs. If you're in your 30s, maybe. But if you're in your 40s, definitely. So it depends on what stage of your life is, and there is no right formula. Believe me, it's not like people in 20s don't care and 40s care more. LTI also depends on how you structure it. It's a lot of money coming at a completion of a certain period, versus it is not just money, also your education. I'm giving you a global degree, I'm giving you an X and Y thing. So it has to be structured in a way. I'll give an example what we did in our own organization. See, digital is growing, and in media the biggest challenge is people are from the conventional background. So we were all in print, in TV, and digital is new business for us. New in the sense maybe 5 years, 10 years, but still the skill is not there. And for us, the skill war becomes even more intense, especially in technology and product side, because we are not a tech company. Our ability to hire and retain becomes difficult. So in such times, LTIs have worked for us, because we were able to give people what they wanted, and it is highly customized. If I have 200 LTI schemes for 200 people, 200 employees, they are customized for each one of them. Somebody is getting an education loan, which is a part of LTI and covering. Somebody is getting a home loan, which is taken care. Somebody is getting real money, and this is all to ensure that they also get a chunk of money and not just lose it out on taxation and stuff, but a real tangible benefit. I have people who completed 3 years and they have gone with an Ivy League degree. So that worked for them. Some people who had home loans, they said, please pay us that part. Our LTIs have to be structured in those ways. So you need to really structure it as per the need of the person, and it works. Otherwise, any other company will pay more and take.
Got it. Coming to, rewards and recognition, and Sudhir, you are an expert in this, so I'm going to bring in you over here. How do you think a positive rewards culture helps the organization to strengthen its employee?
I think it is one of the most exciting aspect of total rewards, the rewards and recognition, and every employee look forward to it. in such events or such endeavors. But if you look at how to put it across, or how do we maximize this, as Dale Carnegie says, all people work for money. That's given. But they would go that extra mile if the R&R is structured and staged well. So that's the difference between a business enterprise and an employer of choice. So that's the differentiation which one could create through this R&R, and that's very, very powerful tool. Having said that, there are a few components which one should look at. Are this R&R linked to the overall enterprise objectives or not? That's very important. At times, in the excitement of designing an R&R, we might deviate, so we may make an employee happy, but the objective is not met. So it's a fine balance between these two. The second aspect is we should utilize these platforms to communicate and reinforce the behavior and culture which we want to have in the organization. At times, it happens that the event takes over the content. The grandeur of the event becomes more important. People are very happy, but what message you want them to take back home, may not be very clear. So if you are rewarding, let's say, a role model, as per the company's objective, and in that setup, that's sending a very clear message that this is what the company is looking at, and why don't you come closer to that? Similarly, reinforcing some other aspects, maybe cultural, behavior, business, we should use this platform for such aspects. And I want to take, a moment here to give some stories, back home at HCL Healthcare. We believed, or we realized that we are going and telling other corporates that, hey, we are here to make your employees healthier. But charity starts from home. So we should be healthy ourselves. So we introduced Green Apple Awards, which is part of the R&R, which talks about health transformation. And it'll be fantastic to speak after the session and otherwise, and I can share a lot of success stories. People have lost weight, they have reduced their HbA1c, and they have kind of reduced cholesterol, and we have multiple stories, and we celebrate it. And that's kind of living and living that culture of health, and that's how we could go back to a corporate and say that we have lived it, and that's how we are coming and telling this story to you. We have also launched some other feats like Hum Fit to Excel Fit, where 80% was the participation rate, which by far is a good standard to look at. So I think these are the things which gives you that necessary impetus to the R&R.
Got it. So Renu, you want to talk about, how do we make the fine balance between employee being happy, visibly employer achieving their objectives through fine R&R program?
I think it should go hand in hand, and I think what is more overpowering or overarching is the organization's objectives. We have this very famous story about the incentive scheme where there was this big restaurant, and they had a customer who complained that the beans which was served to them had worms. So the organization said, okay, let's have an incentive policy for people who are cutting those vegetables, that if they bring more worms, then they are giving more incentive, because if they are picking more worms and then what happened? People started bringing worms from their homes, and so it's important to understand what is the organization objective and how do we build in not only reward structure but other structure. It could be a recognition without any monetary thing. So there's a lot of science behind this, and we keep on trying. So we in Schenker had an individual reward scheme for Employee of the Month, and so many award which was targeted on individual excellence, somebody getting a lot of customer appreciation and so on. And then we had this new CEO who said that logistics business is all about networking, working together, working in team and collaboration. And your goals are like, taking customers further. Your goals are one team, one goal. This is your values, Your values are one team, one goal. Play fair, be honest. And where is your reward? There is no reward that is linked to your values. Your rewards are like Employee of the Month, somebody who has got higher customer appreciation or Rocket Singh award for the best salesperson. But where is your team award? And your values are talking about team. And then we built lot many team awards, like we call them soccer award or whatever. Basically these awards are, the more cross-functional team work together on topics, on projects, then you win award. So yes, I would say that your reward scheme has to be aligned to your organization's values and what is the organization objective. And obviously it has a person in center, which means it is the person who is driving those values at the end of the day. So who are your value champion, and are those behavior and are those people seen, these are like positive examples.
Sure. Thanks, Renu. Let's come to employee wellness. Sudhir, you're also an expert in this. Why don't you first demystify employee wellness in an HR context for us, and then talk about what the best in class organization is doing in the way.
Sure. I'm a tight spot here, but thank you for the question. I think as an organization, this is something which we do as our business offering. What has happened, if I have to look at last 2 decades specifically, and how this entire thing has evolved. And I'm using wellness more for understanding's sake. However, wellness has its own different meaning. Now, wellness encompasses, or it means different to different setup of organization or different teams. One would look at wellness as a menu-based approach. One would look at as a value-creating programs. One would look at as a preventive care. Some would look at primary care and things like that. I don't mean to sound like a medical practitioner, but this is how we really look at it. If you look at 20 years back, and somebody would have asked about a digital challenge, it would have been quite alien, because those are the days when we have looked at health checkup, and that's all. That's something which is part of our wellness, and that's how we define it. But is health checkup wellness, or is health checkup, alone can give you something? So that, is a question to ponder, or point to ponder. There are starting points, then there is a journey, and then there is an outcome. That's how one should look at the wellness continuum. And there are 3 broad aspects. One, we say the primary care. Second, as we say, preventive care. And then we say that well-being. We cannot assume that the primary care is taken care of, preventive care is taken care of, and everybody is healthy. And then that's how the entire continuum works. Slightly deviating. It's human tendency is to remember good things and forget bad things. It's a good tendency. We are looking at RTO, people are coming back to office. Do we really follow the same protocol as we would have very meticulously followed a couple of years back, or until 6 months back? So that's a big question in front of us. The second aspect of it, is it possible to kind of stick to those norms? We have just few gentlemen here with masks, but is it possible to wear mask all the time? The answer is no. So what can we do about it? For example, here, if we are 100 odd people or 200 odd people, what is the on-site or on-premise medical management which we have to ensure that if there is something going wrong, we have a fallback plan? I think that's where the thought process should start beginning at the workplace also. An employee on an average would spend around 7-8 hours in an office and talk and meet. There are plenty of them there. So what are we doing to kind of create an ecosystem of well-being at premises? I think that's very important. And what we are doing and what we are kind of collaborating and partnering with a lot of corporates is creating that ecosystem which addresses some of these challenges. The topmost is delaying the medical needs. Today we talk about mental well-being, we talk about chronic condition and so many things, and you'll be meeting a lot of people, they come and say, but the underlying problem is because something is delayed. And why it is delayed, it could be, it is not necessarily an affordability issue. It's a time issue. It's a convenience issue. So if you address it on site, you're kind of killing 50% of the problem. So that's one aspect. Then the second aspect of it, how do you kind of make it more inclusive? We understand that, from a complete work from office to complete work from home, now we are in the hybrid situation, and it will continue for some more years that way. So how do you kind of make it more inclusive? So this unit, which I'm talking on site, should as an anchor point for physical wellness, and there is a digital overarching layer around it. That's the kind of integration we should create, and that is more sustainable and more fruitful for the organization. So that's at a concept level we could look at from wellness.
Understood. Kavita, you want to talk about what you are doing and what you've seen as very effective wellness strategies employed by organizations?
So typically, I believe wellness is going to be the centerpiece of HR very soon. It's going to be overtaking the engagement that we talk about. Employee engagement and wellness is going to be, wellness will take over it. And in days to come, you will have roles like director of wellness, manager of wellness. It's going to be a full-on task, which again will embed with HR or should embed with HR. Wellness, as I see, I believe it's a complete quadrant. Like Sudhir did emphasize a lot on the physical part of it, and yes, rightly said, so I'm not going to touch upon that part. But wellness for me is starting career wellness. That is where you spend most of your waking hours. So if you are happy in a safe workplace, that's where the whole beginning starts. Your mental engagement with your work that you do every single day. And there is enough data. Gallup has written a very beautiful book, if somebody would really be interested to go through. It's on the well-being at workplace. Starts with the whole thing saying that 70% of your wellness is taken care from typically the career wellness. Moving on, mental wellness. Today is a time when we bring all kind of emotions at work. It is not possible for you to switch off with your home problems or whatever troubles you're going through in personal life and come to office as the system boots, you say, I will only think work. That doesn't work. We are in a time and era where all kind of emotions are discussed. So mental well-being is another piece which each one of us really need to be work. A lot of work around diversity, inclusion, belongingness is all around creating mental well-being at workplace. Also, there is something called as financial well-being. You may be earning a lot of money, but are you investing right? Are you feeling safe? Do you feel insecure at all point in time? Are you even aware how do you plan your finances well? If not, then I think it's worth for companies to really invest, because in a lot of, and I've seen in a lot of workplaces, especially females, it's either the father, brother or husband managing it. And one fine day they realize that whatever I've earned, I don't know where it is. So financial independence, understanding the well-being of it is equally important. So there are aspects and quadrants. Spiritual well-being. Again, it doesn't mean being religious. It's all about being aware and being in the moment and realizing it. So I think it's a holistic thing. There's a lot of work required to be done. And I really believe that organizations have now, post-pandemic, become more sensitive about it. And the wellness is being even talked about. But it's a long journey.
Yeah, I'm learning as I hear you guys. Yes, of course.
Add here that yes, we are now moving from wellness to well-being, which is not, these are not binary or these are not mutually exclusive. So it's a bigger set of well-being in which wellness is a part of it. And I think very basic thing like a good performance appraisal system, which is meritocratic and which is, which takes care of me as an individual to make me develop and learn, is what will add to well-being. So it is not that we in HR should think that, okay, now we also be looking after well-being. We're already, working on talent management, talent reviews, performance appraisal. Rather, we should look into what we have, these offerings. If a good performance appraisal system, and I'm talking to the main topic of appraisals, if it is meritocratic in nature, then I think it will add to wellness, and this is what I think career well-being is all about. I may be giving the best insurance. You may have covered my entire family in this, or I may be going to a preventive health checkup in the best hospital. But if my other systems, they are sucking, I'm not getting the career I'm not getting that feeling of the employee happiness or employee experience, then everything is gone wasted. So well-being should aim at employee experience, and we should try to connect all these pieces together.
So just paying high salary doesn't lead to employee wellness. Point taken. All right. Okay. So before I move the discussion to the audience, one last question, right? So what are the best practices in Comp and Ben or PMS that you have, observed in other companies, which you really admired, and then you felt that I will implement this in my organization as well, or you have already implemented? And this question is to all of you, so no particular order, please. Yes. Sudhir.
I think it's one of the organizations which we are working with. They have put.
It would be good to share the name in case.
I would just say it's a leading financial organization. It's a global MNC, and then I would put my response in the ambit of wellness and well-being and kind of looking at taking care of people. So one important thing which or they have a very clear thought on what should come inside the organization, and that filter is called as quality. So anything which is substandard, they keep it out, whether it is protocol, whether it is processes, products, services, and by that they say that we may not do 10 things, we may do just 2, but we'll do it well. I think that was very, very impressive, and it was completely outcome based. And after having working with them for a year, we are clearly seeing better results. And then I think that's a great approach to have. Thank you.
I don't have any answer because I'm yet to come across. I think it's a very evolving space, and we keep on hearing very good stories about some companies which have very regular systems, very regular appraisal system, non-linked with performance, with salary. No linkages with other things, or having multiple linkages with salary, development, growth, promotions. So I think it's a very evolving space, and I haven't got any answer. That's the reason I'm coming for these kind of conferences, to know where are those organizations having the best systems.
Wow. Okay.
I kind of second Renu here. There isn't a perfect organization for sure, but I believe firmly that as long as the process is continuous, transparent, ongoing, and people know that appraisal is not a surprise. Appraisal is something which I knew throughout the year. I was given enough warning, and my leader stands as a coach to improve it. It's not a punishment system, it's a real reward sense. When the person comes, it's been a journey for a year, it doesn't matter whether I get 8%, 10% or 12%, it doesn't matter. Beyond a level, your P&L can only support that much. But the reality is, if you grow internally, if you move the bar, if you feel that the journey has been worth it, and it's a year journey, that's what I say. Every year when you start your appraisal system, made yearly or continuous or quarterly, it depends from organization to organization. But as long as the needle moves for a person, I think that's where the real change is. Thank you.
I know our audience has a lot many more questions, which I truly do appreciate, but we'll have to keep them for our networking breaks. It's now time for us to thank all our speakers, our panelists. So a round of applause for each of them as I request Mr. Ankit Bansal to present them all with a token of our appreciation. And of course, Mr. Bansal for weaving it all together, our audience for all those questions.